What is up, everybody? Welcome in to episode 55, the Tack McKinley episode of the Barking Brown Show. I am your host, Jacob at Roachism13, joined as always by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Nick Carnes at Carnsies817. Ed in Columbus is on assignment this week. He will be back next week. Nick, how are we doing?
It seems perfectly fitting that when Ed in Columbus is not here, the grand winner of our Zabo shirt giveaway from all of our wonderful Patreon supporters is none other than fellow showmate Andy Manchin. Hello, Andy. First time winner. Congratulations to you. I will be DMing you a little bit after this, but Andy, you won. So thank you for all your support. Thank you to all of our wonderful Patreon members that have been with us all this time, because now we're officially, this is the first show that we have done here where we're officially over the year mark, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
May the 4th was our 1 year anniversary. So we are all excited about that. We got a great show for you guys tonight. We're just giving another opportunity for everybody to get in here. I just tweeted it out that the show is live on Twitch. So we are a part of the Faithful Dogs Network. So we appreciate you guys coming at you a little bit early. Mikey P and Jason Hand will follow us tonight with the Yard Dogs podcast. Tomorrow will be the Faithful Dogs podcast. I know they've got lots of great guests and everything lined up for themselves coming up this week. But we got a great show for you tonight. Our good friend Jim is back. He's going to tell us about the Pittsburgh Steelers draft and why they suck. I just wanted to I can see him in the green room and I see him just smirking after I said that. I just wanted to throw it out there because he always brings on the rings and he makes fun of me, and it's a good time and we always have fun. But he's going to preview the Pittsburgh Steelers draft, and then we are going to do our first deep dive of the year, and it's our 7th round pick, Dawson Deaton, the center out of Texas Tech. So we'll get to all of that stuff here in just a minute. But we wanted to remind you, if you go over to the pin to the top of my profile is my GoFundMe. We are trying to raise money for domestic violence charity. I've already hit the mark to where I will do the one chip challenge sometime in the next week when they arrive live and answer Brown's questions. It will be absolutely miserable. I'm super excited about that. And, all that good stuff. And we will, see how that goes, right? And if we hit the $800 goal, we will eat the Carolina Reaper. That is pinned to the top of my profile, the GoFundMe, if you want to help me raise money for a great cause. But yeah, man. We are super excited to dive into some of this stuff. Nick, I know you're on vacation, so how are you?
Yeah. Well, you know what, Jacob? So I just want to say I pledge to donate and support you in your endeavor, because I love that whenever you do stuff like this, you always find a way to make it for a good cause, and I think that's awesome. So I have a donation coming in there. You know what? It's been really interesting being down here. In Atlanta and just wearing Browns gear. I've had the opportunity to make a couple of friends down here and talk about the Falcons and Deshaun Watson and what it means to them. And there were some really interesting perspectives. I talked to a guy, a really big Falcons fan that said a lot of them, they really thought Deshaun Watson was coming there. And when he didn't,
I did.
Yeah, I did too. I remember Kyle Pitts tweeted out that Atlanta's about to be scary and all that stuff. And so it's been really it's just Cleveland's never in the spot where they beat everybody out for the biggest fish of them all. It's just not something that we're normal. So to be that and to be in this place now where we're starting to talk schedule release, right? Because man, Thursday schedule release, it's official. So I can't. I'm chomping at the bit. I don't want to wish summer away because it's finally nice outside. I know here in Atlanta it's nice, but up in Cleveland it's nice too. So gotta enjoy that in the meantime. But I'm really excited, and we've got a great guest tonight. Jim's coming, and he's been on the show before. We love to break out of our bubble a little bit, and so I'm really happy to do that. And I have a lot of fun stuff about Dawson Deaton. I was reading that we're going to get into later. So
I love a good offensive lineman study, and I know Jim does too.
Yeah.
And I got to do that, so I was having a good chance here. So, all right, let's bring him in. Let's bring in our good friend Jim. It's at least his 3rd appearance on the show. Jim, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, getting up there. I always like to share something fun with you guys. So I don't know if you can see it. It says, if you ain't a Steeler fan, you're a real jag-off. And it's a cowbell. And just sit there and blast that thing off all through Steeler games. So I hope everybody else can hear it at the same time because I annoy the shit out of my neighbors.
That's
I went to a Browns backers bar in Myrtle Beach one time for the Browns to play the Chargers, and they had a similar bell to that. And like the Browns start out really well, they go down the field, score a touchdown. They're this bell's going off, right? And then San Diego at the time just proceeded to absolutely annihilate us, like 38-7, and there was just no more bell, no fun, nothing, silence. So. I don't. It just made me think of it.
That's how it goes. There's a Steelers bar in Myrtle Beach too. It's a nice one, but it was a preseason game when I was there, so nobody even cared really.
You know what? It didn't work out today, but I looked up a Browns backers bar down here, and I was gonna go do the show from there. It just didn't work out with where. But it's amazing. You know what? I gotta say that because we've got between the Steelers and the Browns, man. I think we've got a Browns backer or a backer bar like in every major city across the country. It's crazy.
I have to. All right, Jim, let's jump in here, man. Let's talk about the Steelers draft. You and I have had some conversations about this offseason when it comes to the quarterback. I like their draft a lot when it's all about the first pick. So let's go there, man. Where do you feel like, where are you on Kenny Pickett? Did you like the pick? Would you have preferred it to be a different quarterback? And where in general do you think the other Steelers fans feel about that?
So I'm 50-50 on the pick, not because I'm down on Kenny Pickett. He's the quarterback I would have taken, especially over Willis. I don't ever want a project player as a first-round pick. If you can't start or at least contribute, in season one, then you probably shouldn't be a first-round pick in my eyes. I like the long term, that could come from it, success, I guess. But is Kenny Pickett really any different than Mitch Trubisky? I don't know. He's already 24. Trubisky's only 27. They both play a similar game. They move around, but they don't necessarily run a lot. But they can move side to side. They can keep an offensive line. Help that bad offensive line the Steelers have had. But honestly, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in training camp. Yeah. And I have a friend who made a really good point. You're going to have this QB battle now in training camp between Pickett and Trubisky with an offense that's only been with the team its second year. Both guys are going to be trying to learn that offense for the first time, and you're going to be splitting reps between them. So that just doesn't sound like a good formula for me for success, at least early on. The Steelers could struggle either way, depending on whatever quarterback makes it. But I don't hate the pick. I don't know. I would have liked to see, anything, the best defensive player, the best offensive lineman there. But they retooled in free agency. They think they have what, it takes. And I mean, I'm not a Hall of Fame GM like Kevin Colbert, so I guess I'll trust what he's doing there in Pittsburgh, but it does make me a little nervous.
I just want to say, Jim, I'm not laughing at you, but listening to the what you're saying, it's
what we've been saying for 25 years.
Yeah,
a lot like a Browns fan right now, Jim.
That's it, and that's where we're at. For 18 years, we had Ben Roethlisberger. We were spoiled. You never had to worry about anything except for when he was suspended or hurt, for a couple games each year. But now, they say if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And I feel like, at least right now, until we get to see him play, that's kind of how I feel, because Trubisky, he took the Bears to the playoffs 2 years with Matt Nagy as a coach. I mean, that's pretty good. Awesome. Yeah. So, I don't know. They have retooled, though. They got some O-line in there. Some of the receivers they took in the draft, you had that George Pickens in the second round and Austin in the fourth round. I mean, these guys, they're supposed to contribute a lot, but again, rookies, year one, later round picks, how much are you really going to get out of them? I don't know. 500-600 yards from both of them would be a win in my eyes.
When you're considering they're probably wide receivers 3 and 4 on the depth chart, it's right. I can live with that. I want to catch up on some of these comments real quick. Just because I think some of them are funny. Nick leaves and now it's 80 in Cleveland.
It's true. Yeah, we left wearing hoodies and well, I'm wearing one right now, but you know what I'm saying.
We're talking about the Steelers on a Browns podcast. Of course we are. We love it. We love to get different perspectives and everything. I know he's laughing about it. I know he's just joshing with us. He's always in the comments.
We can't be homers. Well, especially me. I can't be a homer all the time.
Well, we just like to get the different perspective because I like to know. I listen to a lot of national podcasts like PFF podcasts and some things like that do it from a non-Browns lens and stuff. But I also like to hear what my take would be if I was a Steelers fan, so to speak, like the equivalent of me. And I think Jim does a really good job of that. And I really enjoy having him over here. But I think you knew what Nick was doing here. Nick wiped that grin off of your face. I think he knew because we were going to make the quarterback comments. Like, listen, if any team could take Kenny Pickett and just roll with him for the next 15 years, it's probably the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, if we're going to be completely honest about it, I hate it. But, like, listen, we say it every year. Every year I say, this is the year, man. This is the year they're going to have a losing record. And every damn year it does not happen. So not doing it again until I see it. I'm not doing it again.
One good point another friend I have made is Kenny Pickett will actually have a better chance to win more Super Bowls than Ben Roethlisberger, not because he's going to be a better quarterback, but because he doesn't have to go against Brady for 15, 16 years of his career. I mean, everybody that was going against Brady just kept losing. Ben's one of the best ever, got to 3-1-2. Pickett, honestly, I don't think he will, but he, has a pretty good chance if the Steelers put the right team around him, long term.
I gotta say, for both of us being in the AFC right now, it's like, you don't have to worry about Brady anymore. But now,
God, I wish we were in the NFC.
You're just looking at Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and these guys, and you're just like,
the difference for me, Nick, is all those guys are maximizing their deals every year. Every couple years at least. Whereas Brady was always leaving some money on the table to help build that team around him. So you haven't seen a lot of teams win a Super Bowl with a $30-40 million a year quarterback, outside of maybe once or twice here. So it could change the game a little bit, as they start to suck up more of the salary cap.
That's a good point. And you know what? When I was going to say about Trubisky, when he signed there, I was like, well, if Mitch Trubisky is going to be successful anywhere, it's probably Pittsburgh. Right. Like
play action passes, some deep balls on those play action passes, run the ball well, play good defense. If Stephon Tuitt comes back, that defense is going to be top 5 again.
I would agree. That's the thing is like you give your quarterback so much more room for error when your defense is as good as Pittsburgh's is and TJ Watt is as good as he is. So I still think Pittsburgh's going to be competitive. I hate it. I wish they would just bottom out once ever, finally, maybe my lifetime. But I still think they'll be competitive. And I'm excited. It would be really interesting if we start with Browns Steelers week 1.
It'd be fun.
I think that'll tell you we don't do much of it thank you. We don't do much of it here on this show because we don't like to talk about the off-the-field stuff, especially as it surrounds Deshaun Watson, because we're not lawyers. We weren't there. We don't know what happened, and neither of us are going to pretend that we do. And we've said that a million times on this show, so that's how we're going to go. All right, I got this. I finally got my chat up here and working. I just want to make sure.
Okay, cool.
Everything was going on. So, Jim, when people subscribe to the channel in our restream, I can't see it. So I got to get my iPad up just in case so I can give them shout outs. But if the Browns play early primetime or division games, I think it could indicate if the suspension comes this year or next. Because I think there's some real talk that could be what happens. Yeah. And I think that the schedule, it may mean nothing. They may not care one little bit, but the NFL is about maximizing money, and they want the Browns to play meaningful games when Deshaun Watson is playing in terms of for the money. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's probably the world that we live in.
Yeah. It's a business.
Yeah.
We got a question for you with Andrew. I just saw his comment pop up here. Is there anything going on with the Steelers and Joe Hayden? Have you heard anything about that?
Good question. I would like it because the Steelers added, I can't remember the guy's name, but they added a defensive back from Buffalo who's like a good number 2 corner. They have Cam Sutton and Witherspoon, who are both, good number 2 corners. So they don't have a number 1. Hayden's not necessarily a true number 1 anymore, but if you bring him back on a 1-year deal for, I don't know, 6 million, something like that, if he'd take it, that's a slam dunk for me, if you ask, because Pittsburgh, with a great pass rush, they don't need great defensive backs, good defensive backs with a great pass rush. So I haven't heard anything necessarily. Most of the rumblings I hear are, Hayden hasn't got what he wanted. Pittsburgh's staying in contact, but they're going to kind of wait until after the draft, which we're already past the draft. So he might be trying to wait for somebody to get hurt to try to squeeze a little more money out of these final contracts. But I would love it if he came back to Pittsburgh for another year. Maybe you give him a 3-year deal and, work it so it's a lower cap hit, but he's not going to last 3 more years.
Let's move on to the middle rounds here. Let's talk about the third. We briefly talked about the wide receivers. Let's talk real quick about George Pickens and Calvin Austin. Yep. George Pickens is a guy I lobbied for at 44. There's the off the field stuff. If there's ever an organization that can take a guy who is what I have been told is a pain in the ass, that is what I heard. If there's an organization, it's probably Pittsburgh or it's New England. They can probably straighten out it. He's got injury concerns and that stuff, but in terms of talent, that's a first-round talent at wide receiver, and Calvin Austin was one of the fastest receivers in this draft. 2 guys I loved in Cleveland and lobbied for, and now I'm trying to find ways to slander them, but it's not going so well, So where are you at, man? Like you talked about it briefly, but where are you at overall with Kenny Pickett's weapons, having added these guys and, of course, Connor Hayward as well?
I like Pickens. Like you said, he's kind of got that off the field stuff, but you already mentioned him and Austin are going to be 3rd and 4th on the depth chart. So you put him up against the 3rd best corner on most teams, and he's probably going to beat him, more often than not, or at least enough. And then Austin is that slot guy where you can move him around. Matt Canada likes to do those jet sweeps, so he'll probably get more rushing yards than most people realize. He might even return kicks and punts, stuff like that. So I like both of them. The Steelers always draft receivers well, outside of Limas Swede, who was a 2nd-round pick who couldn't catch the coronavirus if you blew it in his face for an hour. I mean, he was the worst guy ever. But these 2 guys,
I don't think I've ever heard that insult, man. It took a second to register in my brain. It rattled around. I was like, did he just say that?
There it is.
He was so bad. He fell down on a wide open pass one time, missed the ball and broke his wrist. I mean, wide open, guys. Not a player within 10 yards of him. He was terrible. But outside of that, they've done pretty well. So I like Pickens. He's big, 6'3", 195. Austin, I've seen him listed at 5'7", 5'8", and 5'9". So, depending on how many tissues he stuffed in his shoes that day, I guess, before practice, we'll see how tall he really is. The one thing that worries me about Austin, the Steelers have drafted players like him in the past and just totally missed. Now, hopefully that won't happen. They drafted a guy named Dree Archer one time, very similar skill set. He was just awful. I mean, he might have played 1 or 2 years and then was done. So hopefully that's not Austin. But I saw that Sauce Gardner, I forget where he got drafted. He said Austin. Yeah. He said Austin's the hardest receiver to cover in college football this year. So, somebody
and I think Sauce Gardner's the best corner. It was the best corner in this class. So
yeah, believe it. So if he's saying he's hard to cover, I mean, that'll work. Antonio Brown wasn't big. Emmanuel Sanders wasn't big. Mike Wallace wasn't big. The Steelers seemed to find the right guys. So hopefully it wasn't a swing and miss. But Pickett needs those weapons. You put those with Deshaun Watson, with Claypool if he steps up. You got Najee Harris back there. And that O-line they rebuilt through free agency. So the quarterback doesn't have to win the game this year. At least that's the way it looks on paper.
You mentioned Dree Archer, and as a fellow Golden Flash alum, I remember him pretty well.
He was
and
good
I was
in college.
Yeah. Oh, he was real good there, and I was not happy at all when Pittsburgh drafted.
Yeah. They ruined him for you.
Yeah, it does. You know what? It's interesting to me because obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster leaves, and Pittsburgh's got their own. And Jim, I'm sure you can weigh in on what's going on with Deontay Johnson and his potential contract situation, or whether Pittsburgh's going to pay him or how they're going to do that. But it definitely feels like they're looking ahead. When you select 2 receivers in the draft and you use 2 of your higher picks on that, obviously they know that they're going to need that's a huge need for them. So I don't know what that means for Deontay, if they're still what they're going to do. I don't know if you've heard anything, but I'd love to know, because with the Browns now, it's like they trade a 5th for Amari Cooper and they restructure his deal, and they're kind of set with wide receivers because everybody else is young and nobody's going to get paid. But this wide receiver market is crazy right now. Like AJ Brown goes to Philadelphia, for God's sake, and
$100 million right out the gate
immediately.
Crazy.
So yeah. Well, I am really curious about what the feeling is there with Deontay Johnson.
Most of what I've been getting and kind of reading is the Steelers are kind of trying to squeeze him a little bit by drafting Pickens in Austin. And in the last probably almost 25 years, there's 2 Steeler receivers to get a second contract outside of Juju's 1-year deal last year, and that was Hines Ward and Antonio Brown. That was it. And Mike Wallace, he wanted all that money. They said goodbye. They gave it to Antonio Brown. Wallace went and flopped. AB flourished,
Yeah.
So the Steelers, they don't give big money to receivers. That being said, the Steelers also used to not give big money to quarterbacks, and Roethlisberger was making $40 million a year almost, before he was done. Like you said, Nick, that market's crazy, man. It's just insane. He wants about 18 to 20 million a year over 5 years. I don't think he's going to get it in Pittsburgh. So I think they're hoping those rookies will keep going and that Claypool will take that step forward. I mean, look at Claypool's skill set. If he gets his head in the game, there's no reason he can't be a top 5-10 receiver in the whole league, and he could definitely surpass Johnson as the number 1 guy on the team. It's just a matter of, will he do it, and will these young guys step up quickly?
Yeah, that's a real. Claypool is such a weird case, because he's been so good, but then I remember the Minnesota game and all that surrounded his little
celebration that ran out time.
Weird.
Doesn't have his head in game. Now, don't forget, too, guys, the Steelers drafted Pat Freiermuth last year in the 2nd round, who was arguably the best rookie tight end in football last year, and he's only going to get better. So, he's going to be a big, big part of what they do on offense. He's not. He might be better than Heath Miller. I hate to say that, because Heath Miller was one of my favorite Steeler players and tight ends of all time. But he's a little faster than Heath, and he can get out and move a little better in open space. He might not be able to block as well, but I think in the passing game, Freiermuth can be real big, especially in the red zone for Pickett or Trubisky, whoever's starting at quarterback.
We got a question over here, and then I've got just a couple more for you as we wrap up this situation. MC Lawrence, our good friend MC Lawrence, wants to know, besides quarterback, since there's a little bit of uncertainty there, what do you think the biggest Steeler need is at this moment?
Cornerback, because I'm not sold on them having a solid number 1, which is why I'd like Hayden back. With the group they have, I think they would have enough. But if one guy got hurt for an extended time, now you're down to only 2 guys who I consider number 2s instead of 3 number 2s, starting everywhere. So I'd like the Steelers to try to shore up that a little bit when you see some of these veterans getting cut, or maybe they bring Hayden back, if he can take a team-friendly deal.
You see, and in that, what the way you talked about that so perfectly describes why the Browns did what they did in the draft and drafting yet another corner. Right. They've got Denzel, they've got, Greg Newsome, and AJ Green's a nice piece. Greedy Williams is here. They had Troy Hill before they traded him, but it's like the thing that sticks with me that you just said, if one goes down, what are you going to do?
Yep, that's it.
And that's where Martin Emerson comes into for the Browns. That's where Martin Emerson is for. It's like one goes down, AJ Green's got to play. Well, somebody's got to take AJ Green's spot, or however it is. And it's like, that's why you take these big, long corners in Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, these guys. That's why you take guys like Martin Emerson with the big, long arms that can get physical and play with these wide receivers like that. Because this AFC North, man, it's an arms race.
Believe it. The Steelers are terrible at drafting cornerbacks, though, so I like when they sign other people's quarterbacks that they can't afford.
Just get me one that you already developed. I don't want to go through that bullshit.
if you're like, well, we can't figure this out anyway, then you might as well just go get a proven product.
That's it. It worked with Joe Hayden. You guys threw him away. We picked him up. He was a starter for 6 or 7 years.
That's what the Browns are trying to do with Deshaun Watson. It's like, that's what it's like. We can't figure out the damn quarterback. Let's just go get one that did it else.
We go winless 1-31. We draft this dude. He didn't work out either. So maybe we'll just trade for one that we've already seen play well, and hopefully that guy could play well.
Poor Baker Mayfield. I never liked the guy, but now I feel bad for him.
This comment may be the great. I don't know how to take this. I don't know how to take this, Warden. He said that I'm so sexy that I'm the Deshaun Watson of Twitch sports. Wow. You the real MVP, Warden. You the real MVP. He's our good friend over there. I got one more question for you, man, and we'll let you go, and then we'll jump over to some Browns stuff for the other people checking this out. DeMarvin Leal, man. That is a Pittsburgh Steeler if I have ever freaking seen a Pittsburgh Steeler pick. A dude that, he's kind of a tweener. That's why he ends up falling where he falls. Kind of similar to Logan Hall, I think. They're very similar kind of players when you look at the prospect list. But you get him at 84. They're 3-4 base, man. He can play that base in with – I just think of DeMarvin Leal with TJ Watt on the outside of him, crashing off of that side, and I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And then he kicks inside with Hayward, inside on because he could with that ability to slide inside with that as well. And I'm just like, how are you feeling about DeMarvin Leal? Because that, to me, that was the Steelers' best draft pick.
Yeah, that was a need. I thought they were going to go D-line in the first or second round, to be honest. I was surprised when they didn't. But, Stephon Tuitt still may or may not come back. They do not have any depth on that D-line. They get Alu back this year, but he's 34 and coming off a pretty bad injury. Hayward seems to keep getting better, so I can't say anything negative about that guy. Really good guy, really good player, so, even though he's a Steeler and I know you guys aren't a big fan, he's just one of the good
Hayward's
guys.
Awesome.
Yeah. But they need that depth. They need Leal to be good, and he's probably, to me, if Tuitt doesn't come back, he starts. And then if Tuitt does come back, he's still going to be a rotational guy because Tuitt's been out a whole year. He had a knee injury last year to try to rehab from. Losing his brother, I'm sure he wasn't rehabbing hard, and I'm not hating on him. We grieve in our own ways, but he really didn't have football in his heart last year. So what kind of shape is he going to be in? Football shape is different than good shape. Leal is in football shape. Tuitt's probably not. So either way, I think you'll see a lot of playing time early on. Long term, I think they'll ask him to put on a little weight and play D-line. Usually these tweeners, they'll ask him to drop 10 pounds and play on, outside linebacker. But they got Watt, they got Highsmith. I think the need is more at D-line. If he puts, 15 pounds, 10 pounds of muscle on, at D-end and the occasional slide inside to D-tackle, he'll be a machine in the Steelers' defense.
It's really interesting because I think both the Browns and the Steelers are still in a place where they're waiting on these free agents, and we're like 2 weeks removed from the draft now, and I don't feel like that's normal at all. In a typical off season, your team's basically set right now, and so the NFL's being real weird right now with these remaining free agents because they're the Browns are I think hanging on every word of Jadeveon Clowney right now, hoping he re-signs with them.
Yep.
And there's still a lot of guys out there. So we're going to see. I mean, there's still the Steelers could, the Browns could, a lot of these teams could improve a lot even now before the season, which is weird to me. But Jim, I appreciate you joining us. I just had one last thing for you.
Sure.
I just was curious. So you talked about the quarterback competition. If you had to pick who you think is going to be the day one starter, because if the Browns do start against the Steelers, right, that's going to be the quarterback they face. I'm just curious who you think will be the Steelers' day one starter this year.
I think it's going to be Trubisky. I don't see how Pickett can beat him out. I think Pickett will play eventually, I hope not really, because I really want Mitch to play well. But I just think, being in the league a couple more years, being able to pick that offense up a little faster, knowing how to command a huddle of men. Pickett did it in college with young men. It's a little different when the guys around you are making $20, $30 million a year. So I think it's going to be Trubisky, at least for the first couple weeks. I just, the veteran status he has, I think, just gives him that little bit of an upper hand.
Well, Jim, we really, really appreciate you jumping on here, man. You can find Jim. Is it bet the spread _? Is that the
bet _ the spread?
There it is. I got it backwards. Over on Twitter, you can check him out. He's always fun to send a few jokes in there. Every once in a while. He'll get a few ribs in there. I get some back on him sometimes, but he's better than me at it. Like he's always in there. He's like, so what's fake or? I'm like, yeah, come on now. You just gotta always. Jim, we really appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon. Probably in training camp before the preseason gets off, if that works out for you, man.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
All right, man. You have a good night.
Thanks.
All right. Jim's always really eager and willing to jump on and have a good conversation with us. I'm going to catch up on some comments, and then we got a special guest that you didn't know was going to be here because I told you that Ed in Columbus was on assignment, but we still are going to find out if we go for it. We'll find out in just a second. We got somebody waiting in the wings. We got a couple questions over here, man. Big Mike Vegas wants to ask, with Tom Brady's Fox contract, 10 years, $350 million whenever Tom Brady hangs it up to go work at Fox as their lead analyst. That's more than he made in his entire career. If you add his salary for this year, his career earnings is like $330 million. And still his wife is worth more than him. Do you believe that? How much emphasis do you put on Baker going to Tampa?
That's a great question.
It makes even more sense, doesn't it?
I think, yeah, you know what? Because and I was going to talk to Jim about it, but you know what? The one thing I really liked about them taking Kenny Pickett is the Baker to Pittsburgh stuff died with that, and I'm very thankful for that. But so they were saying, I think Tampa Bay is a place where you could see the opportunity to start, and I think as the time has gone on in this process, it's like, Baker he might not have a chance to start at all this year. So if you look around the NFL and that's the new reality you accept, you say, okay, I'm not going to start this year, and that's just the way it is. Then, I mean, Tampa Bay building for the future in that way makes a lot of sense. They have a well-established offense, a good offensive line, great receivers, tall receivers, I might add, that Baker certainly excels with, right? Mike Evans is 6'5".
Yeah, some deep threats too, which is where when he's on his best, that's where he's excelling.
So, and even no, OJ Howard's not there anymore. I was going to say him, but
I like OJ Howard.
Regardless of that, they're a proven system that's successful, and I think Baker needs structure. I think he just needs a place where he can go, and he respects what's going on around him, and they want to build that into him. And so I think he could benefit. Honestly, I don't know. I have such mixed feelings on Baker right now. I'm in a weird place with it.
It's hard. All right. What's this here? Dan says that Clowney's not worth the stress. Dan, shut up.
I love you, Dan. I love you.
I love you too, but you're drunk. Go home. I should have got the gig over Brady. I know.
There it is.
I know.
I'd turn on the TV to see you, Jacob.
I wouldn't. All right, guys. We are going to find out if we go for it before we do our deep dive on Dawson Deaton. We talk about the wide receivers and wrap this thing up. And to bring it in, Mr. Ross in Cleveland. Ross, what's going on?
It's your boy, Ross in Cleveland. How you guys doing today? I'm so excited to be here, man. But I think everyone else should be excited because I'm here, and I'm the man, and I know how to go for it better than anyone. Screw punting, screw kicking. Who drafts a kicker anyway? Oh, sorry. I heard your take on that. I mostly agree with it. But anyways, should we go for it?
Let's go for it. Let's do it.
I got my Mountain Dew, you can see here. Actually, it's a can colored like Mountain Dew, but it's actually an IPA because
good for you.
I can't have caffeine this late. I go to bed early.
He's like, I can't. I'm a responsible adult. I can't have caffeine.
Or I'll just lull myself to sleep. A little alcohol do the trick.
Yeah, that little nightcap. All right, so first up, the Browns have a very crowded running back room right now with Chubb, Johnson, and drafting Jerome Ford. Would you go for this? Trading Kareem Hunt for a second-round pick?
Yes. There's an odd man out anyway. And Kareem's probably gone after this year anyway. And Jerome Forbes' pro comp is DeAndre Swift or Kareem Hunt, depending on the outlet you look at.
Yeah,
So
getting back those picks we lost for the quarterback trade.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm torn because Kareem Hunt, and Jacob and I have said this a bunch of times. Kareem Hunt was the best running back on the team before he got hurt, and that guy was making a difference and it'd be very good. And it's no disrespect to Nick Chubb, but the running back market and what you can get for running backs is so low that if you could get a second round pick for Kareem Hunt, good luck to you, friend. Thank you for being here, and it sucks, but that's just part of it, right? And anytime you draft another running back and you've already got D'Ernest and Demetric Felton, I don't know if any of those guys can be Kareem Hunt, and that's kind of why I'm apprehensive. But yeah, I'm gonna go for it.
I've got to say, I like the natural sunlight you got going on, Nick.
Yeah, I'll tell you. All of a sudden, this Georgia sun down here, I'm burning.
All right, so next up on Go For It. So it's reported that Jarvis Landry turned down a 1-year deal to come back to the Browns. Would either of you take a 1-year deal from the Browns to write for them for $1? Would you go for it? $1 salary for 1 year.
No, I make more money on the website. Yeah.
You know what? I would love. Oh, wow, that looks delicious. I would love to just say I'm employed by the Browns, and I already do this Twitter stuff for free anyway, right? So $1, that's a massive increase compared to what I'm currently making. So I'm going for it. $1, give it to me.
There you go. Yeah, think of the experiences and the people you meet, and maybe you'll actually get a long-term deal. It's like it's the 1 year.
I'm getting my foot in the door. I'm going out down the street in Berea. That'd be fun. I'd like that. Ross, these are great questions. I'm glad you're here, Ross.
Yeah, you should be. So here's I got one last one, and I'm gonna, in the spirit of the dog chug, it's not gonna be that serious.
Sure.
So here's a hypothetical. Let's say Ross leaves the Dog Chug podcast, which is on tomorrow at 9 p.m. by the way, and becomes a free agent. Would you hire him as producer of the Barking Browns?
Show can only get better.
You're really good at what you do, Ross. So, wow, that's a heavy question.
The last time I was just a fun little guest on a show, I actually took Ed's job. If any of you guys remember that.
Oh no. Well, so to be fair, Ross, Ed,
but he is host now, so I'm not taking the job.
True.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't have a producer technically, So
it could happen, yeah.
I could see. The chances are pretty in your favor there, Ross. I like what you know what, and I just want to say, Ross. So Ross and I went to high school together and graduated together, and used to be friends back in the day, and really hadn't talked a whole lot. And then Twitter happens, and I just see him, and I'm like, oh my god, And so like the fact that we're all sitting here now, and like we talk all the time again, and we've become friends. Like I love that about it. And so I don't know, Ross. I think you're great at what you do. It would be a lot of fun. That's all I'm saying. It'd be a lot of fun.
You're an idea man. You're a really good idea man.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll leave the analytics to you guys, though. Trust me.
We'll try. Ross, we appreciate your time tonight, man. I know you did it bouncing around with the children and everything. They got to sleep. You was able to jump on here, so we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Check out the Dog Chug tomorrow at 10, and check Ross out on Twitter and all of his socks.
All the socks.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Ross. I just want to say, as Ross gets clicked off the screen, if for people who don't know, he puts on one hell of a tailgate a couple different times a year that we were lucky enough to go to. Ross does his own smoking and grilling and barbecuing, and it is delicious. So I'm not sure what games he's going to be doing, but we will keep you posted, because that is something you will not want to miss. There's video games and beer and everything you could ask for, and Browns. So how does it get better?
It doesn't. We got 10 minutes and we got 2 topics. We got a real motor through real quick. Let's talk real quick about Dawson Deaton, the 7th round pick. We did this last year where we decided that we would do a deep dive each week as we went on over with a deep dive on each of the picks. I did some film dive. I'm going to talk about my observations for Dawson Deaton. If you're a Patreon member, you can go over to the Patreon and check out the YouTube video where I showed you some of these things and highlighted them in a really quick 10-minute little YouTube compilation of some highlights and some things to show some of the strengths and weaknesses of Dawson Deaton. We will do Isaiah Thomas next week. We will do either the Bengals or the Ravens. We will have a guest for that to do that draft class. And then we'll finish up the rival draft class the week after that. And then we'll get back into our top 5s where we do like a top 5. I think the first top 5 is going to be top 5 Batman villains.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Like, I think that's where we're going.
We made Andy, who won our great, you're wearing a Zabos apparel shirt, great shirts, by the way. We made Andy a huge Rick and Morty fan from our top 5 last year. He never watched Rick and Morty. Mm-hmm. So we put in our top 5.
And he was like, I got to see this. And he was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Because it is. Yeah. I've eaten homemade barbecue chicken pizza. It's out of this fucking world. Anyway, we also, the week, sometime soon for the fans, we're going to get more fans of the show on here to tell us what they think about your Cleveland Browns. We were going to be doing that soon after we finish the rival draft preview reviews.
So if you're interested, we love making new friends. We love having people on. We love hearing from you guys. It's not just all about us, right? We love talking to you and your comments and all the support. And so, and some of my best friends now are because we did For the Fan episodes, honestly, because we didn't know Ed just came on just like Ross just did and blew us away. And now here he is as our 3rd member of the show.
All right, man. Dawson Deaton. Check it out.
Yeah, Dawson Deaton.
He's limited. First and foremost, he's a 7th round pick. He's limited. He reminds me of Nick Harris in the sense that I'm not sure Dawson Deaton can play guard. I think he is strictly a center. And the reason I say that is because he needs a lot more strength. He does not get driven back all that much, but he does not drive people back in the run game. He is more of an athlete than a mover. That's the way I put it. He will keep his guy locked up. He has pretty good technique, and he doesn't have any really great pass sets. And so sometimes he gets driven back, although he does a good enough job of just being in the way. Like, he does a good enough job being in the way. He's athletic. He moves really well in the screen game and the pull game, which is exactly what the Browns want.
Yep.
His pass sets are average. Athletic defensive tackles, however, can slip right by him. He does not have great pass sets, and if they have really athletic swim moves or dip moves, they will do-si-do right by him sometimes. It's a little scary. He does move great in space, and he has over 30 career starts at center. So that's a really big deal. He does some things that are nice. I think he's a practice squad player because I think Pocic is your backup center because Pocic can also play guard. I don't think Dawson Deaton can. However, he is the perfect athlete / style of player for this scheme for Bill Callahan to work to develop to get to that next level. So I really like him as a 7th round pick, but he's a practice squad guy, and he's got good size, but he really needs to work on his NFL strength.
This is a great example of you get to the end of the draft and you bet more on physical traits that you can't teach than anything else, right? Because Dawson Deaton is the highest rated athlete by relative athletic score of the entire draft class. He's also 6'5", which is, I mean, when you look at Nick Harris and then Dawson Deaton's going to be up here, Nick Harris.
Yeah, when I say he reminds you of Nick Harris, it's not size because they are not the same.
And I was reading about him, and basically the thought on him was a lot of what you echoed, Jacob, is that he uses technique to get to where he needs to be, and not so much power or force. Not there yet. And you know what better team to draft him than the one with Bill Callahan as your offensive line coach? So I mean, there's upside there. And that's all you're looking for, right? At the end of the draft, when you're down this low, you're looking for upside. And I think when you've got a freak athlete that is also huge, there's a lot of that there. So, and if he fits into your scheme, your zone blocking scheme that way, all the more, because that's what it said about Nick Harris, right? Like if we rolled the clocks back a year or 2 years, Nick Harris. Sorry, I guess our show went. But if we would have graded the Nick Harris pick, I think that's probably along the lines of what we would have said. is that he has a scheme fit and could be somebody that. And now he's our starter. So you never know.
If Pochich goes down, I think you'd be okay with Dawson as your backup. I think. Okay. MC Lawrence, that's a great point. He says the boys got to stay low. He plays high. That is definitely and that's where his he can play high because his technique, he does a pretty good job with technique, but if he goes high, he does not have the strength like Wyatt Taylor. If Wyatt Taylor goes high, he'll be all right. But like Dawson Deaton doesn't have that to back it up. So we got 5 minutes real quick, Nick, before we get off here. And the Yard Dogs to stay on this bus. They will be here after us with a Hall of Fame fan. You might want to check that conversation out.
All right.
But if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you can do that for free with Amazon Prime if you want to do that. It helps us out greatly. Wow, that was gross. And high noon, baby.
High noon.
Anyway, we subscribe to the channel. We really, really appreciate all your likes, your comments, your subscribes, reading my articles on Dog Pound Daily, all those things. We love you. We love you. We love you. Real quick, wide receivers. They may not add a wide receiver. People were shitting on the wide receiver room. And I'm going to tell you something. Stop.
Wow.
I know I said this last year, and I was an idiot, but I'm talking about a top 10 quarterback. Now, this is all in my mind. I wrote an article about 5 bold predictions, and I said that my predictions are contingent on a 4-game suspension or less.
Okay.
Top 10 quarterback. Amari Cooper is a bona fide number 1. One of the best route runners in the game. DPJ does not have the pressure he led you in receiving last year. David Njoku is about to get Austin Hooper's targets. Don't forget about Harrison Bryant. Don't forget about Kareem Hunt coming back and Nick Chubb out of the backfield in the screen game. I have been told many times by people I trust they love the progress of Anthony Schwartz. They love what he is doing. If he can be what we thought, you just need to threaten them deep. That's it. Because David Bell is going to be a problem as a power slot or an outside wide receiver. He is a volume guy. I would not be shocked for David Bell to have 60 to 70 receptions this year. If you watched Building the Browns this week, there was 2 things. They love Alex Wright because they're smart people. And Kevin Stefanski wanted David Bell.
He was like, you're the first guy I looked at. I told Andrew Berry, I got to have this guy. And when Kevin Stefanski plants his flag like that, I mean, hey, I'm going to trust him. I'm going to trust him. And
it's a boom or bust room.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I think it booms.
Now, I understand that Anthony Schwartz needs to work on route running. I understand there's a lot of technical parts to his game that need to improve. I get it. But when he was drafted, okay, one of the biggest things was, he's got to continue to develop his size, his strength, his body, right? And I have a little tweet preview. I have when Anthony Schwartz was in his rookie camp and Anthony Schwartz, as he's been practicing now, you're going to like the difference that you see. Anthony Schwartz has been putting in the work. There's no doubt about that guy ass off. And I have never understood wanting to write him off after 1 year, especially when he was injured.
He was a developmental rookie.
I don't get that. That makes no sense to me. Why are we writing off rookies? Or why? I understand not all of them are going to shine immediately, but players develop and grow. And a lot of these guys, and Anthony Schwartz is no exception, are young when they get drafted here. Okay, so that's another piece of the puzzle too.
He was one of the youngest guys in last year's draft class.
Yeah. Thank you. I knew you'd know better than I did. I knew he was young, but I didn't know, obviously. But
he was like young 20 when he was drafted.
Yeah. So I've never understood wanting to give up on these guys right away. And it's not like Anthony Schwartz was going out there every game and just being bad. He was hurt a lot of the year. So I would pump the brakes a little bit.
That's what we're saying. We're saying calm down.
How many years have we spent watching elite quarterbacks making their receivers look? The Packers, I don't remember the exact stat. They have not spent a first-round pick on a
since
wide
receiver. 2002.
I mean, come on, man.
It's something stupid.
Like, let Deshaun Watson work, and then let's evaluate.
Nick, we got to get out of here, guys. We love you so much. We'll be back on our regular time next week. Nick, let's get out of here, and let's open the door for the Yard Dog Sport.
We love the Yard Dogs. Thank you to everybody for watching today. Faithful Dog Network, great. This has been the Tack McKinley, still miss that man, episode of the Barking Brown Show. Thank you to Jim. Thank you to Jim. Thank you to Ross. Thank you to everybody for being here. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. Go Browns.
Go Browns. See you next week.